3. Market Scoping, a complete step-by-step guide for LGU procurement officers and implementing engineers. This guide is based on Republic Act 12,009, its implementing rules and regulations, sections 10.1 to 10.4, together with DPWH Department Order No. 30, Series 2025, and DPWH Department Order No. 210, Series 2025. Why this matters. Every finding, every peso figure, and every legal citation you are about to hear traces back to these three references. Keep this in mind as the strongest defense whenever the approved budget for the contract is questioned during audit. Next slide. Table of contents. This guide has 15 parts. Part 1, what is market scoping? Part 2, legal basis, quoted directly. Part 3, when and who. Part 4, the 7 allowed activities. Part 5, step-by-step for infrastructure. Part 6, step-by-step for goods and supplies. Part 7, price data sources, a complete guide. Part 8, why prices change. Part 9, effect of wrong price estimates. Part 10, how to compute the ABC. Part 11, documents to produce. Part 12, market scoping versus formal RFQ. Part 13, ethics and limits. Part 14, common errors and consequences. Part 15, summary checklist. A practical tip before you begin. If you are short on time, the parts that carry the highest audit risk are Part 4, the 7 allowed activities, Part 10, computing the ABC, and Part 13, common audit findings. Give those three parts your closest attention. Next slide. Part 1. What is market scoping? This part covers the definition, the purpose, and why market scoping was introduced under Republic Act 12,009. Emphasis. Before Republic Act 12,009, many officers skipped this research step entirely and simply guessed. That gap in the old system is exactly why this new requirement exists. Next slide. Market scoping is the systematic process of gathering relevant information about the market for goods, services, or infrastructure before preparing the Project Procurement Management Plan, or PPMP. It is the research phase that ensures all cost estimates, technical specifications, and procurement timelines in the PPMP are realistic, accurate, and grounded in actual market conditions, not guesswork. This is new under Republic Act 12,009. Market scoping is an explicit, mandatory requirement that was not present in the old Republic Act 9184, the Government Procurement Reform Act. This represents a deliberate policy shift, from budget estimates based on past year's figures, to evidence-based procurement planning. In simple terms, before writing the PPMP, the end user must research the market. Visit suppliers, get price quotes, check the CMPD, review specifications. Market scoping is that research. For example, imagine an engineer preparing next year's PPMP for a barangay road. Under the old practice, they would simply copy last year's cost per square meter. Under market scoping, they must instead call 3 hardware stores, request the current CMPD, and confirm today's price of cement, sand, and gravel, before writing a single peso figure. Why this matters? Evidence-based planning is the entire foundation of everything that follows in this guide. If market scoping is skipped or done poorly, every downstream document, the PPMP, the ABC, and the bidding documents, inherits that same weakness. Next slide. Part 1. The problem market scoping solves: wrong estimation practices. Here are the common wrong practices engineers and budget officers used before this requirement existed, and what goes wrong because of them. First, copying last year's ABC prices change 20 to 40% per year, cement, gravel, labor, and fuel all move. If the ABC is too low, all bids exceed it, resulting in failed bidding. If the ABC is too high, government overpays. Second, using round numbers such as exactly 500,000 pesos. This has no technical basis and cannot withstand audit scrutiny. The Commission on Audit questions the basis, and management cannot explain the amount. Third, asking the contractor what the project should cost. The contractor inflates the ABC to ensure their bid wins comfortably. Government pays above market price, and the procurement is potentially rigged. Fourth, using outdated price lists from prior quarters. There may be significant price movements since the last CMPD was issued. The DUPA ends up using wrong material prices, making the ABC inaccurate, and quality may be compromised if the contractor cuts corners. Fifth, memory-based estimates. The engineer's recollection of past project costs may be inaccurate and unadjusted. This produces an unreliable ABC, which leads to procurement problems and commission on audit findings. Take special note of this. Every single wrong practice listed here has actually been cited in real commission on audit findings against local government units. If you recognize any of these 5 practices in your own office's current routine, treat that as an immediate red flag to correct, not a minor technicality. Next slide. Part 2. Legal basis. Legal provisions, quoted directly, of Republic Act 12,009, Implementing Rules and Regulations, Sections 10.1 to 10.4. Emphasis. Everything you are about to hear in Part 2 is quoted directly, word for word, from the Implementing Rules and Regulations. Nothing has been paraphrased. This is important because during an audit, or when explaining market scoping to your Sangunian, you can cite these exact words with full confidence. Next slide. Legal provision, quoted directly. Republic Act 12,009, Implementing Rules and Regulations, Section 10.1, reads as follows. Quote, to ensure proper and strategic procurement planning, the procuring entity, through the end user or implementing unit, shall conduct market scoping as a preliminary undertaking in preparing its PPMP, which covers the proper cost estimation, project design and specifications, technical and selection criteria, delivery lead time, storage or warehousing requirements, related industry practices, and other relevant market information. End quote. Key point. The word shall conduct means this is mandatory. Take note that it is the end user or the implementing unit, not the BAC, that conducts market scoping, and it must happen before preparing the PPMP. To emphasize why this provision matters, the phrase, shall conduct, is a mandatory legal command, not a suggestion. This means that skipping market scoping is not merely bad practice, it is technically a violation of the implementing rules and regulations itself, separate and apart from any pricing error that might result. Next slide. Legal provision, quoted directly. Republic Act 12,009, Implementing Rules and Regulations, Section 10.2, reads as follows. Quote, market scoping may include the following activities. Letter A, consultations with suppliers, contractors, consultants, or professional associations. Letter B, participation in summits, fora, or conferences. Letter C, evaluation of market reviews or analysis of technical, financial and scientific reports. Letter D, review of product or service brochures and marketing materials. Letter E, price sourcing for quotations or cost estimates from suppliers, contractors, or consultants. Letter F, use of relevant data from the PhilGEPS or agency websites. Or, Letter G, any analogous activity for the purpose of gathering relevant market information. End quote. Key point. There are 7 specific allowed activities, letters A through F, plus a catch-all provision at letter G, for any analogous information gathering activity. We will explain all 7 of these activities in complete detail in part 4 of this guide. For example, if your office only ever uses activity letter E, price sourcing, and never uses any of the other 6 activities, you are still compliant, because the law says these activities, quote, may include, end quote, meaning you are not required to use all 7 every time. But the more activities you genuinely use, the stronger and more defensible your market scoping becomes. Next slide. Legal provision, quoted directly. Republic Act 12,009, Implementing Rules and Regulations, Section 10.3, reads as follows. Quote, market scoping is a preliminary process wherein the procuring entity collects relevant market information to understand the supply environment, identify potential suppliers, evaluate available products or services, and assess relevant market trends, in order to develop a comprehensive and realistic PPMP. The conduct of market scoping shall observe the principle of proportionality. End quote. Key point. Proportionality means simple procurement requires simple research, while complex infrastructure requires a comprehensive study. The effort you put into market scoping must match the complexity of the procurement. For example, buying a single laptop computer needs only a quick check of 3 suppliers and the procurement service catalog. That is proportional. But a multi-million peso multi-purpose building needs site inspection, multiple canvases, DPWH coordination, and a full narrative report that is also proportional, but at a much deeper level. Emphasize this distinction whenever someone questions why a small purchase does not need the same paperwork as a large infrastructure project. Next slide. Legal provision, quoted directly. Republic Act 12,009, Implementing Rules and Regulations, Section 10.4, reads as follows. Quote, market scoping covers. Section 10.4.1, proper cost estimates involve factors such as direct and indirect costs, contingencies, and other associated costs, while factoring in cost trends, inflation, life cycle costs, and other relevant factors. Section 10.4.2, project design and specifications should be based on available and appropriate standards and benchmarks in the market. Section 10.4.3, technical and selection criteria should be set based on the capability of the market to deliver goods and services. Section 10.4.4, delivery lead time takes into consideration the logistics and delivery timeline required. End quote. Key point. Section 10.4 requires 4 outputs from market scoping. 1. A realistic cost estimate. 2. Market-based specifications. 3. Appropriate eligibility criteria. And 4. A realistic delivery or completion timeline. Importance. These 4 outputs are not optional extras, they are the actual deliverables market scoping must produce. If your PPMP has a cost estimate but no evidence that specifications, selection criteria, and delivery lead time were also researched, an auditor can reasonably say market scoping was only partially performed. Next slide. Legal provision, quoted directly. DPWH Department Order No. 210, Series 2025, and DPWH Department Order No. 43, Series 2026. Quote. DPWH Department Order No. 210, Series 2025. The Construction Materials Price Data, or CMPD, shall be the basis for the unit costs of all construction materials used in the preparation of the DUPA and the ABC. The CMPD is updated quarterly per District Engineering Office. And DPWH Department Order No. 43, Series 2026. Considering the volatility of fuel prices and its significant effect on construction material costs, implementing officers are directed to use the most current quarter's CMPD data in the preparation of the POW and the ABC. End quote. Key point. The CMPD is updated quarterly. Always use the current quarter. Fuel price volatility may require special attention between quarterly updates, as directed under Department Order 43, Series 2026. For example, if the DPWH District Engineering Office released the construction materials price data for the second quarter of 2026, and you are preparing your PPMP in September 2026, that second quarter data is now outdated, and you must confirm whether the third quarter CMPD has already been released before finalizing your estimate. This quarterly discipline is one of the very first things a Commission on Audit auditor will check. Next slide. Part 3. When and who. This part covers the timing of market scoping within the procurement cycle, and who is responsible for conducting it. Emphasis before we continue. Getting the timing and the responsible person wrong are 2 of the most common reasons market scoping gets challenged during audit, even when the prices themselves turn out to be correct. Next slide. Part 3. Market scoping in the procurement cycle, where it fits. There are 8 steps in the cycle. Step 1 is market scoping itself, conducted by the end-user office, such as the municipal engineer. This is the research phase that produces price data and specifications. This is market scoping. Step 2 is PPMP preparation, done by the end-user office, using the market scoping results for the ABC and specifications. Step 3 is the budget proposal to the Sanggunian, handled by the budget officer and the mayor, where the PPMP supports the budget proposal. Step 4 is the appropriation ordinance, passed by the Sanggunian, authorizing the funds based on the PPMP and the annual procurement plan. Step 5 is final APP preparation, done by the BAC Secretariat, consolidating all final PPMPs. Step 6 is the pre-procurement conference, conducted by the BAC, as an internal review that re-verifies whether prices have changed significantly. Step 7 is ITB advertisement, handled by the BAC Secretariat, marking the start of public bidding. And Step 8 is bidding, award, and contract, involving the BAC and the Mayor, where the contract is executed based on competitive prices. Why this sequencing matters. Notice that market scoping is Step 1, before the PPMP even exists. If an office writes the PPMP first and then tries to gather market scoping documents afterward just to complete the file, the paper trail will not hold up. Because the dates will show the research happened after the plan was already written, not before. Next slide. Part 3. Who conducts market scoping and who must not. For infrastructure projects such as roads, buildings, and drainage, it is the municipal engineer or designated engineering staff who conducts market scoping. It must never be the BAC, nor the contractor who will bid, nor private individuals without official capacity. For medicines and medical supplies, it is the municipal health officer or the RHU pharmacist or physician. It must never be any supplier who will sell the medicines. For agricultural supplies such as seeds and fertilizers, it is the municipal agriculturist or an agricultural technician. It must never be fertilizer dealers or seed companies who will bid. For office equipment and supplies, it is the administrative officer or general services officer. It must never be IT resellers or office supply dealers who will bid. For professional or consulting services, it is the office that will manage the consultant. It must never be the consultant who will provide the service. The underlying principle here is simple. The person who conducts market scoping must never be the same person, or the same entity, who stands to benefit from winning the eventual contract. Emphasize this point strongly. The single most important safeguard in this entire slide is the separation between who plans and who benefits. For example, if a fertilizer dealer is allowed to conduct market scoping for the fertilizer the barangay will buy, that dealer has every incentive to shape the specifications in their own favor. This is precisely the kind of conflict of interest that leads to Republic Act 3019 exposure, which we will cover in detail in Part 12. Next slide. Part 3. How often must market scoping be done? First, during annual budget preparation, every year before submitting the PPMP, because prices change every quarter, and last year's prices cannot be used without verification. Second, for a revised APP mid-year, before adding a new project to a revised annual procurement plan, because prices may have changed significantly since the original budget was prepared. Third, at the pre-procurement conference, if more than 1 quarter has passed since the original market scoping, prices must be re-verified before finalizing the ABC in the bidding documents. Fourth, after a failed bidding, the BAC's mandatory review must include re-scoping the market to check if the ABC needs revision. This is often the primary cause of bidding failure. And fifth, when there are design changes through a change order or an extra work order, new market prices must be obtained for the new or changed work items. For example, a road project scoped in January 2026 that is still awaiting bidding in October 2026 has gone through 3 CMPD update cycles without being re-verified. That is 9 months of potential price movement sitting inside an unrevised ABC. Treat any market scoping older than 1 quarter as a warning sign that re-verification is needed. Next slide. Part 4. The 7 allowed activities. A detailed explanation of each market scoping activity under Section 10.2. Next slide. Part 4. Overview of the 7 market scoping activities under Section 10.2 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations of Republic Act 12009. Let us go through every one of the 7 activities, one at a time, in full detail. Activity letter A is consultations. This means visiting suppliers, contractors, and professional associations. You ask them about prices, availability, technical standards, and the usual approaches taken in the industry for similar work. Activity letter B is conferences. This covers attending Department of Public Works and Highways summits, Department of Health forums, Government Procurement Policy Board summits, and industry expos. Attending these events lets you gain current market intelligence directly from the people who set standards and prices. Activity letter C is market reviews. This means evaluating the construction materials price data, technical reports, the ACEL Equipment Guidebook, Department of Labor and Employment wage orders, and the Department of Health Drug Price Reference Index. These are the official published references that already contain verified market information. Activity letter D is brochures. This means reviewing product catalogs, specification sheets, and industry journals, so that you learn what products and technologies are actually available in the market before you write your specifications. Activity letter E is price sourcing. This means obtaining informal quotations from suppliers in order to estimate the approved budget for the contract. Take note, this is not the same as the formal small value procurement canvas required later in the procurement process. This is purely a planning tool. Activity letter F is fill gaps data. This means using award notices, marketplace prices, and registry data found on the Philippine government electronic procurement system as benchmarks for your own price estimates. And finally, activity letter G, which is the catch-all provision. The exact wording of letter G is, quote, any analogous activity for the purpose of gathering relevant market information, end quote. Now let us explain letter G comprehensively, because this is the most flexible and most commonly misunderstood of the 7 activities. Letter G exists precisely because the law recognizes that it cannot possibly list every single method by which a government employee might reasonably gather market information. Letter G is a catch-all, meaning that any activity, not already named in letters A through F, is still a valid market scoping activity, provided that its actual purpose is to gather relevant, verifiable market information, and that it is conducted honestly and in good faith by an authorized officer. In practical terms, this includes checking prices on other known and verified online commercial outlets, beyond the fill gaps marketplace already covered under letter F. Examples include established online marketplaces such as Lazada and Shopee, as well as the official websites of manufacturers, authorized distributors, and other reputable online retailers. Checking prices on these platforms is a legitimate, analogous activity under letter G, because it accomplishes exactly the same purpose as a physical canvas, gathering relevant, current market information on the price and availability of goods. However, because these online sources are not part of a signed, in-person price canvas sheet, they must be properly documented to withstand audit scrutiny. The proper way to document this is as follows. Take a clear screenshot of the product listing. The screenshot must clearly show the store or seller name, the exact product description or specification, the price at the time it was captured, and the date the screenshot was taken. Where possible, also capture the platform name, for example Lazada or Shopee, and the seller's rating or verification status, since this supports the credibility of the source. Keep these screenshots together with your other market scoping documents, such as the price canvas sheet, so that an auditor can trace exactly where each price figure came from. This documentation standard, screenshot, store name, price, and date, is the same standard of proof that a physical price canvas sheet already requires: supplier name, date, and price quoted. The medium is different, a screenshot instead of a signed form, but the evidentiary purpose is identical, to prove that the price used in the approved budget for the contract is real, current, and verifiable. Other examples of analogous activities under letter G include reviewing recently awarded contracts from neighboring local government units for similar items, consulting professional online forums or technical groups where practitioners discuss current material costs, and reviewing recent commercial invoices or receipts from the local government unit's own prior purchases of similar items. Adjusted for the passage of time, the unifying test for whether any activity qualifies under letter G is this. Ask yourself, does this activity genuinely help me understand real, current market conditions, and can I document it in a way that another person, such as a Commission on Audit auditor, can independently verify? If the answer to both questions is yes, the activity is a valid exercise of letter G. One final point of emphasis before moving on. Notice that letters A through F are specific and named, while letter G is deliberately open-ended. This design is intentional. It gives you flexibility to use good judgment, while still requiring that whatever method you use produces real, checkable evidence. When in doubt, always err on the side of more documentation, not less. Next slide. Part 4. Activity letter A, consultations with suppliers and contractors, explain step by step. Step 1. Identify all work items and materials needed. For APCCP road, this means Portland cement, washed sand, crushed gravel, pipe culverts, riprap boulders, and lumber for forms. Step 2. Contact at least 3 suppliers per material type. Visit or call hardware stores and construction suppliers in the nearest city or the nearest commercial center. Step 3. Ask specific questions. For example, how much is a 40 kilogram bag of Portland cement today? How much per cubic meter for washed sand delivered to the site? Is the price stable for the next 3 to 6 months? Step 4. Record all information. Write down the name of the supplier, the date, the prices quoted, the delivery conditions, and any minimum order requirements. Keep a signed price canvas form. Step 5. Contact the DPWH District Engineering Office and request the latest quarterly CMPD for the province. This is the official price reference that must align with your field canvas. Step 6. Compare and document. If field prices differ from the CMPD, explain the variance. Field prices may be higher due to recent price movements not yet reflected in the latest CMPD quarter. Why this step-by-step order matters. Notice that identifying materials comes first, and computing the DUPA comes much later, in Part 10. Skipping straight to a price without first identifying the exact material specification is a common shortcut that leads to inconsistent quotations, since supplier the 1st of may be quoting a different quality of cement than supplier 3. Next slide. Part 4. Activity Letter C. Key official price data documents to review. The Construction Materials Price Data, or CMPD, is issued by DPWH per district, updated quarterly, and contains current prices for cement, gravel, sand, steel bars, lumber, pipes, paint, electrical, and plumbing materials. Obtain it by requesting from the local DPWH District Engineering Office or from the DPWH website. The standard labour rates are issued by DPWH, based on Department of Labour and Employment wage orders, and contain the daily and hourly rates for foreman, skilled worker, labourer, and operator positions. These are found in the DPWH Regional Office Annex to Department Order 30, Series 2025. The ACEL Equipment Guidebook, adopted by DPWH, contains hourly rental rates for backhoes, dump trucks, mixers, graders, rollers, vibrators, and batching plants. Obtain reference copies from the DPWH District Engineering Office or the ACEL Association. DPWH CCEM 2015, issued by the DPWH Bureau of Construction, contains standard output rates per pay item and resource requirements, for example. PCCP at 90 cubic meters per day using 3 transit mixers. This is available on the DPWH website or at the District Engineering Office. The Department of Health Drug Price Reference Index contains current reference prices for medicines by generic name, dosage, and strength. Obtain it from the Department of Health website or regional office. And the Procurement Service, Department of Budget and Management Catalogue and Indicative Annual Procurement Plan, contains government prices for common use supplies, and reference prices for non-common use supplies and equipment items. Obtain these through the PhilGEPS Electronic Marketplace or the Procurement Service, Department of Budget and Management website. Importance. Think of this table as your master reference sheet. Every one of these 6 documents answers a different question: prices, labor, equipment, output rates, medicine costs, or common supplies. So a complete market scoping file for an infrastructure project will typically draw from at least the first 4 of these sources together, not just one. Next slide. Part 4. Activity Letter E. Price Sourcing. Understanding the difference between a market scoping price inquiry and a formal request for quotation in small value procurement. For a market scoping price inquiry, the purpose is only to estimate the ABC. It is a planning tool. It happens before the PPMP, in the pre-planning phase. It is not binding on the supplier, there is no obligation to buy. It does not trigger procurement, it is purely information gathering. A minimum of 3 suppliers is good practice, but there is no strict legal minimum. It does not require PhilGEPS posting, because it is informal research only. The result is simply a price estimate used to compute the ABC in the PPMP. For a formal request for quotation in small value procurement, the purpose is to actually procure a specific item. It is a formal procurement step. It happens during small value procurement itself, a formal procurement process. It is binding on the supplier, the quotation is a formal offer. It does trigger procurement, leading to a purchase order and a contract. A minimum of 3 suppliers is required under Section 34.3 Letter C. PhilGEPS posting is required if the ABC exceeds 200,000 pesos for 3 calendar days. And the result is that the winning quotation becomes the actual contract price. The key distinction to remember is this. Market scoping is research to help you plan. The formal request for quotation is the actual procurement transaction. Emphasize this distinction clearly, because it is one of the most frequently confused points in procurement practice. Market scoping price sourcing is exploratory and informal, it simply helps you arrive at a number. The formal request for quotation is a legal, binding procurement action. Treating an informal market scoping quotation as if it were already the final purchase price is a common and serious error. Next slide. Part 5. Step-by-step, infrastructure. The complete process for conducting market scoping for LGU infrastructure projects, using APCCP Road as the example. Next slide. Part 5. Infrastructure market scoping, steps 1 to 4. Step 1. Review the project need and scope. What exactly needs to be built? Read the project description in the capital expenditure program or the development plan. Identify the location, the approximate length, width, and area, the structural elements, and a rough cost estimate. Step 2. Prepare a preliminary scope of work. List all pay items. For APCCP access road, this includes clearing and grubbing, excavation, embankment, aggregate base, PCCP with a specified thickness, pipe culverts, grouted riprap, mobilization, signboard, and OSH requirements. Step 3. Conduct a site inspection or survey. Visit the project site. Measure the approximate road length, width, and existing condition. Note the soil condition, the water table, the distance from the nearest supplier which affects hauling cost, access for construction equipment, and the presence of utilities. Step 4. Obtain the latest CMPD from the DPWH District Engineering Office. Contact the local DPWH District Engineering Office and request the latest quarterly CMPD for the province, the current standard labour rates for Region 5, and an updated equipment rental rate reference. Remember, the CMPD is updated in January, April, July, and October. For example, a Barangay Road project with a rough estimate in the development plan of 500,000 pesos still needs a physical site visit before that number can be trusted. Photographs and measurements taken in Step 3 often reveal conditions, like unexpectedly soft soil or a need for additional culverts, that the original planning document never anticipated. Next slide. Part 5. Infrastructure market scoping, steps 5 to 8. Step 5. Conduct a field price canvass, with at least 3 suppliers per material. Visit at least 3 hardware stores or suppliers. Record on a price canvas sheet the price of cement per 40 kilogram bag, washed sand per cubic meter delivered, crushed gravel per cubic meter delivered, RCP culvert per piece, lumber per board foot, and steel bars per kilogram. Compare all of these against the CMPD Step 6, verify labour rates. Obtain the DPWH standard labour rates for Region 5. These include the minimum wage, plus GSIS, PhilHealth, PARG-IBIG, 13th month pay, and holiday pay. Verify rates for construction foreman, skilled labourer such as mason or carpenter, common labourer, and equipment operator. Step 7. Check equipment rental rates. Verify current hourly rental rates for backhoe, dump truck, transit mixer, road grader, plate compactor, concrete vibrator, and water truck. Compare with the DPWH adopted ACEL rates, keeping in mind local rates may vary. Step 8. Add hauling cost for remote sites. CMPD prices are typically ex-quarry or ex-plant. For remote barangay sites, add the estimated hauling cost, considering truck capacity, distance from supplier to site, number of trips, and fuel cost. Department Order 30, Series 2025, allows CMPD prices to be incorporated with additional hauling cost. Importance. Steps 5 through 8 are where the actual peso figures are born. An error here, for example forgetting to add hauling cost in Step 8, flows directly into an understated direct unit price, and then into an understated approved budget for the contract, which we will see in Part 9 can cause a failed bidding. Next slide. Part 5. Infrastructure market scoping, steps 9 to 12. Step 9. Compute the preliminary DUPA for key pay items. Using CMPD prices, standard labour rates, and ACEL rates, compute the unit price per work item. The formula is materials plus labour plus equipment equals direct cost, and direct cost multiplied by 1 plus OCM% plus profit% plus VAT% equals the unit price. Step 10. Compute the quantity estimate. From site measurements and the preliminary scope for PCCP, multiply length by width by thickness to get volume, and multiply length by width to get area. For subbase, multiply length by width by thickness by a compaction factor. For culverts, multiply number of locations by length per location. Step 11. Assess market conditions. How many qualified contractors are available in the area? Are prices stable or rising? Are there supply constraints? What is the delivery lead time for critical materials? For example, RCP culverts may take 2 to 4 weeks for delivery. Step 12. Prepare market scoping documentation. Complete the price canvas sheet, signed by the engineer, attach a copy of the CMPD, and compile the preliminary program of works and quantity estimate. This documentation supports the ABC in the PPMP and must be available for Commission on Audit review. Emphasize Step 12 in particular. All the computation work in Steps 9 through 11 means nothing to an auditor unless it is captured on paper, signed, and filed. A correct but undocumented computation is, from an audit perspective, no different from having no computation at all. Next slide. Part 6. Step by step, goods and supplies. The market scoping process for procurement of goods, equipment, medicines, and supplies. Next slide. Part 6. Market scoping for goods, complete steps. Step 1. List items with generic, not brand-specific, specifications. For example, write, quote, desktop computer, minimum Intel Core i5 or equivalent, 8 GB RAM, 512 GB SSD, Windows 11 Pro, 21-inch monitor, 1-year warranty, end quote. Never write a specific brand and model. Step 2. Check the Procurement Service, Department of Budget and Management electronic marketplace. Visit the PhilGEPS marketplace. If the item is available through Procurement Service as a common use supply, use the Procurement Service price as the benchmark ABC. These items can be purchased directly from Procurement Service. Step 3. Collect price quotations from at least 3 suppliers. Visit stores, call distributors, and check online marketplaces, using official brand stores only. Record the supplier name, address, item specifications quoted, unit price, payment terms, warranty, and delivery time. Step 4. Verify against the indicative annual procurement plan for non-common use supplies and equipment items. Procurement Service publishes an indicative annual procurement plan with government reference prices. Use this as an additional benchmark. For medicines, compare against the Department of Health Drug Price Reference Index. Step 5. Consider the total cost of ownership, not just the price. Assess the availability of spare parts, after-sales service such as whether there is a nearby service center, brand track record, and warranty terms. A slightly more expensive item with a better warranty may give better value. Step 6. Determine the procurement mode from the resulting ABC. If the ABC is 400,000 pesos or less, for a first to third class municipality, small value procurement may be used. If the ABC exceeds 400,000 pesos, competitive bidding is required. Market scoping determines the mode, through the resulting ABC. For example, writing a specification that says, quote, Samsung brand printer, end quote, instead of, quote, laser printer, minimum 20 pages per minute, network ready, 1-year warranty, end quote. Immediately narrows your supplier pool to one brand, defeating the entire purpose of steps 2 through 5, which is to compare multiple sources fairly. Next slide. Part 7. Price data sources. A complete guide to official and market-based price references. Next slide. Part 7. Official government price references. DPWH-CMPD covers all construction materials, cement, gravel, sand, steel bars, lumber, pipes, paint, electrical, and plumbing. Prices are district-specific, meaning specific to the local district engineering office. It is updated quarterly, in January, April, July, and October. Get it from the local DPWH District Engineering Office or the DPWH website. DPWH standard labor rates cover daily and hourly rates for all construction labor, foreman, skilled worker, laborer, and operator, and include mandatory benefits. It is updated whenever the Department of Labor and Employment wage order changes. Get it from the DPWH Regional Office or Department Order 30, Series 2025 Annex. The ACEL Equipment Guidebook covers hourly rental rates for all construction equipment, earth-moving, concreting, paving, lifting, and hauling. It is updated annually, with mid-year revisions. Get reference copies from the DPWH District Engineering Office or the ACEL Association. The Department of Health Drug Price Reference Index covers all medicines, generic name, dosage form, strength, and price per unit, and is the basis for medicine procurement ABC. It is updated quarterly or as needed. Get it from the Department of Health website or regional office. The Procurement Service, Department of Budget and Management Catalogue and Marketplace covers common use supplies and equipment, office supplies, IT equipment, janitorial, and fuel, with direct purchase prices. It is updated quarterly or as needed. Get it through the PhilGEP's electronic marketplace or the Procurement Service website. And the indicative annual procurement plan for fiscal year 2026, non-common use supplies and equipment, covers furniture, equipment, vehicles, and similar items, with government reference prices. It is updated annually. Get it from the Procurement Service website or the Government Procurement Policy Board website. Importance: notice that 4 of these 6 references are updated quarterly or more often. This means a document that was accurate 3 months ago may already be outdated today. Make it a habit to check the issue date on every price reference you use, not just the title of the document. Next slide. Part 7. Market-based price sources. Local hardware stores, at least 3 per material, provide current retail prices for cement, gravel, sand, lumber, steel, plumbing, and electrical materials, plus delivery rates to the project site. This is a high reliability source, reflecting the actual local market, and should be cross-checked with the CMPD. Steel bar distributors provide current price per kilogram for 10, 12, 16, and 20 mm deformed bars. This is high reliability, since steel prices are relatively standardized, though regional variations exist. Concrete product manufacturers provide precast RCP culverts and hollow blocks, with price per unit delivered to site. This is high reliability for precast products, which are relatively stable, though you should verify availability and delivery lead time. Equipment rental companies, whether local or regional in B-Coal, provide current daily or hourly rates for backhoes, dump trucks, concrete mixers, and road equipment. This is high reliability, reflecting actual local rates, which may differ significantly from ACEL book rates. Truck and hauling operators provide hauling rates per cubic meter per kilometer for sand, gravel, and bulk materials. This is high reliability and critical for remote barangay sites, since hauling often represents 20 to 40% of aggregate cost. PhilGEP's award notices from recent, similar projects provide contract prices per unit for similar LGU projects recently awarded in the region. This is medium reliability, useful as a benchmark, but you should verify recency, not older than 1 to 2 quarters. And the Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers Regional Chapter, or neighboring LGU engineers, provide market intelligence from practicing engineers and local supplier reliability and actual cost data. This is medium reliability, anecdotal but valuable, especially for local conditions and site-specific factors. For example, in a remote barangay, the hauling rate from a truck operator may add 20 to 30% to the raw cost of gravel compared to the ex-quarry CMPD price. Relying only on the CMPD without also checking a local truck or hauling operator, as this slide recommends, would silently understate your ABC by a significant margin. Next slide. Part 8. Why prices change. Understanding the factors that affect construction and procurement costs. Next slide. Part 8. Fuel price, the master variable that affects everything. Equipment rental rates in the ACEL guidebook are affected because fuel is a major component of equipment operating cost. Higher diesel prices lead to higher hourly equipment rates, which leads to higher DUPA equipment cost. This applies to backhoes, dump trucks, transit mixers, graders, and rollers. Hauling cost of materials such as sand, gravel, and cement is affected because trucks use diesel. A 25% increase in diesel price causes a proportional increase in hauling cost per cubic meter of gravel. For remote barangay sites, this becomes a significant portion of total material cost. Cement price is affected because cement production uses energy, partly from diesel generators, and transportation uses diesel. Higher fuel means higher cement price, and cement typically moves within 1 to 2 months of fuel price changes. Steel bar price is affected because steel production uses heavy energy inputs. Higher global energy prices affect domestic steel prices, and Philippine steel tracks global markets with a 1 to 3 month lag. Batching plant operations are affected because concrete batching plants use diesel generators and fuel-powered equipment. Higher fuel means higher concrete production cost per cubic meter. And labor cost is affected indirectly, because workers travel to construction sites. Higher transport costs create pressure for higher daily wages, and the Department of Labor and Employment may adjust the minimum wage if fuel significantly affects the cost of living. Emphasis. Because fuel touches nearly every cost component on this slide, equipment, hauling, cement, steel, and even labor, a sudden spike in diesel prices should prompt you to re-verify your market scoping even if you conducted it only 1 quarter earlier. Fuel price movement is the fastest moving variable in the entire market scoping process. Next slide. Part 8. Other factors affecting construction costs. Global steel supply and demand affects reinforcing steel bars and structural steel sections, with a possible 10 to 40% annual swing, since Philippine prices track global markets with a 1 to 3 month lag. The exchange rate between the peso and the US dollar or the Chinese yuan affects imported materials such as electrical fixtures, tiles, specialized equipment, and partly imported steel. Every 1 peso depreciation against the dollar increases imported material costs by approximately 1.5 to 2%. OPEC oil production decisions affect all materials indirectly, through fuel and transport. A major oil price shock, for example a 50% increase within 6 months, dramatically increases all CMPD prices. Typhoon damage to supply chains affects aggregates such as gravel and sand, lumber, and roofing materials. This is seasonal, with prices spiking after major typhoons as demand surges and supply routes are disrupted. Department of Labor and Employment regional wage orders affect the labor component of all DUPA work items. Each minimum wage increase raises the DPWH standard labor rates, increasing the contractor's total labor cost. And cement supply constraints affect Portland cement specifically. Supply disruptions, such as plant maintenance or port congestion, can cause 15 to 25% price spikes in specific periods. For example, a 15% depreciation of the peso against the US dollar can meaningfully raise the cost of imported electrical fixtures or specialized equipment for a municipal building project, even if local labor and aggregate prices stay completely flat. This is why market scoping must look beyond just local hardware store prices. Next slide. Part 8. Local factors affecting costs in the province. Distance from the quarry to the project site, or hauling distance, matters greatly. Gravel and sand prices increase significantly with distance. A project in a remote barangay pays higher hauling rates than one closer to the nearest city. Always add hauling cost to the CMPD-X quarry prices. Typhoon season, from July to November, slows construction, may create short supply of some materials, and rainy days increase contract duration. Note that PAGASA historical data of at least 3 years is the required basis for unworkable days in the PERT-CPM computation. The availability of qualified contractors matters, because fewer PCAB licensed contractors in the area means less price competition, meaning bids tend to be closer to the ABC, meaning less government savings. Market scoping should assess how many local contractors can actually bid. The remoteness of the project site matters, because remote barangays incur more mobilization cost, longer equipment rental periods due to transit time, possible need for worker accommodation, and costlier transportation of materials. These must all be factored into the DUPA. Local availability of aggregate materials matters, because some areas have good local river gravel sources, while others depend on supplies from distant quarries. Local availability significantly reduces the aggregate cost component. And local labor availability matters, because skilled workers such as masons, carpenters, and equipment operators may be scarce in some areas, creating pressure for higher wage rates above the DPWH standard labor rates minimum. Importance for local application. Because these factors apply broadly across many provinces, treat hauling distance and typhoon season as the two local factors deserving the closest attention. A project in a remote municipality during typhoon season, from July to November, is exposed to both of these risk factors at the same time. Next slide. Part 9. Effect of wrong estimates. What happens when the ABC is too low, too high, or based on wrong specifications? Next slide. Part 9. ABC too low, a cascade of problems. At the bidding stage, all bids exceed the ABC, which means all bids are automatically disqualified, and the BAC declares a failed bidding. Under the implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act 12,009, bids above the ABC must be disqualified, so even one valid bid cannot exist at a too low ABC. After a failed bidding, the BAC conducts a mandatory review and prepares for re-bidding. If the second bidding also fails, negotiated procurement may be used. Each cycle adds 2 to 4 months to the timeline. The revised ABC after a failed bidding may be increased by up to 20% for negotiated procurement, under Section 35.1 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations. But a revised annual procurement plan must first be prepared, approved by the Mayor, and posted on PhilGEPS. There is a budget impact, because the original appropriation may not cover the increased ABC. A supplemental budget may be needed from the Sangunion, adding further months of delay, and 20% Municipal Development Fund projects may miss the December budget deadline. There is a project delay impact, because the total delay from a failed bidding is 2 to 4 months per cycle. 2 failed biddings means 4 to 8 months of delay, pushing implementation past the fiscal year deadline, resulting in an unexpended balance, and possibly a return to the general fund. And there is a Commission on Audit impact, because the Commission on Audit may question why the ABC was set too low. Was market scoping conducted? Was it adequate? Was the CMPD current? Absent or inadequate market scoping documentation becomes a potential audit finding. For example, imagine a Barangay Road project with an ABC understated by only 10% due to a stale CMPD. Every single bid comes in above that ABC, the bidding fails, and the project is delayed by 2 to 4 months while a revised ABC is prepared. What began as a small pricing error becomes months of delay and possibly a missed fiscal year deadline. This cascade is why getting the ABC right the first time matters so much. Next slide. Part 9. ABC too high, also a problem. At the bidding stage, bids come in below the ABC, which appears normal. But if the ABC is inflated, the apparent savings are illusory, because the government has effectively pre-authorized overpaying relative to true market value. At the award stage, the award is made to the lowest bid. But even the lowest bid may be higher than the true market price, because bidders calibrate their prices relative to the ABC shown in the invitation to bid. At the payment stage, the government pays more than the fair market rate for the same quality of work. This is a direct loss to the public treasury, even if technically within the ABC. There is a Commission on Audit risk, because if the Commission on Audit compares the ABC against actual market prices from the CMPD and finds a significant overestimate without basis, this may be flagged as inadequate cost estimation. And there is an ethical risk, because an inflated ABC may benefit a pre-selected contractor who was consulted during planning, a conflict of interest in market scoping. If the ABC was inflated to ensure a specific contractor's bid wins comfortably, this constitutes bid rigging under Republic Act 3019. Emphasize the ethical risk in particular. An ABC that is too high is sometimes assumed to be a harmless margin of safety, but this slide shows that it can just as easily be a sign of an inflated estimate benefiting a favored contractor. Treat an unusually generous ABC with the same scrutiny you would give an unusually low one. Next slide. Part 9. Wrong specifications, what happens? A brand-specific specification, where only one supplier can meet it, means only one bidder can participate, or all others are front companies of the same supplier. Competition is eliminated, government pays a monopoly price, and this violates the competitive principles of Republic Act 12,009. An SLCC threshold set too high, for example 75% of the ABC instead of the required 50%, disqualifies many capable local contractors. possibly causing failed bidding, procurement delay, and eventual award to an out-of-area contractor at higher mobilization cost. An equipment requirement that no local contractor has means no qualified bidder exists in the area, leading to failed bidding, and the need to negotiate with an out-of-area contractor at significant additional mobilization cost. A specification for a material not commercially available locally means the contractor cannot source the specified material, requiring a change order to substitute, delaying the project, or the contractor uses a substitute without approval, creating a quality issue and an audit finding. And over-specifying product features that are not needed unnecessarily increases cost, reduces the number of qualified suppliers, produces poor value for money, and invites the Commission on Audit to question whether the specification was justified by genuine need. For example, requiring a specific imported brand of water pump for a small water system project, when locally available pumps meet the same technical performance, is a classic case of over-specification. It narrows competition without adding real value, and it is one of the easier findings for an auditor to detect, simply by comparing the specification against what is actually sold in the local market. Next slide. Part 10. Computing the ABC. How market scoping data is used to compute the approved budget for the contract. Next slide. Part 10. The DUPA formula. How unit prices are computed. For materials, each material's cost is its quantity per unit of output, multiplied by the unit price from the current CMPD. For PCCP, this includes cement, at 364 kg per cubic meter minimum, per Blue Book item 311, plus sand, gravel, water, and lumber for forms. For labor, follow the DPWH standard labor rates. The formula is number of persons, multiplied by hours per output unit, multiplied by the hourly rate. This is based on DPWH CCEM standard cost sheets, for example, PCCP at 90 cubic meters per day, using 1 foreman, 1 lab technician, 6 skilled workers, and 10 laborers. For equipment, follow the ACEL Equipment Guidebook, adopted by DPWH. The formula is number of units, multiplied by hours, multiplied by the hourly rate. The PCCP standard uses 3 transit mixes, plus a payloader, vibrator, batching plant, and water truck. For OCM, meaning overhead, contingencies, and miscellaneous, use 15% of direct cost for an estimated direct cost up to 5 million pesos. 12% for 5 to 50 million pesos, and 10% for 50 to 150 million pesos, per DPWH Department Order 30, Series 2025. For profit, use 10% of direct cost for an estimated direct cost up to 5 million pesos, and 8% for 5 to 50 million pesos, per Department Order 30, Series 2025. And for VAT, use 5% of direct cost plus OCM plus profit. The combined factor for projects up to 5 million pesos is direct cost multiplied by 1.3125 equals total unit price. Importance. Notice that materials, labor, and equipment are computed completely independently, each from its own official reference, the CMPD, the DPWH standard labor rates, and the ACEL guidebook. Mixing up these references, for example using a labor rate from a different region, is a common and easily overlooked error. Next slide. Part 10. DUPA example, PCCP item 311 per square meter, illustrative only. Portland cement, 1.820 bags at 285 pesos per bag, derived from 364 kilograms per cubic meter, divided by 40 kilograms per bag. Times 0.20 meter thickness, equals 1.82 bags per square meter. This is the minimum per Blue Book item 311, section 311.2. 11. Costs 518 pesos and 70 centavos. Washed sand, 0.110 cubic meters at 750 pesos per cubic meter, costs 82 pesos and 50 centavos. Crushed gravel, 3/4 inch, 0.145 cubic meters at 700 pesos per cubic meter, costs 101 pesos and 50 centavos. Lumber for form boards, nails, and water, 0.850 board feet at 55 pesos per board foot, plus other minor materials, costs 49 pesos and 35 centavos. Total materials, 752 pesos and 5 centavos. Labor, per CCEM at 450 square meters per day, using 1 foreman, 6 skilled workers, and 10 laborers, computed as total daily labor cost divided by daily output, costs 25 pesos and 53 centavos. Equipment, 3 transit mixes plus payloader, batching plant, vibrator, and water truck, computed as total daily equipment cost divided by daily output, costs 144 pesos and 89 centavos. Direct cost, the sum of materials, labor, and equipment, is 922 pesos and 47 centavos. OCM, at 15% of direct cost for estimated direct cost under 5 million pesos per Department Order 30, Series 2025, is 138 pesos and 37 centavos. Profit, at 10% of direct cost, is 92 pesos and 25 centavos. VAT, at 5% of direct cost plus OCM plus profit, that is 5% of 1,153 pesos and 9 centavos, is 57 pesos and 65 centavos. The total unit price per square meter of PCCP is 1,210 pesos and 74 centavos. Take special note of the illustrative nature of every peso figure in this slide. These numbers are only an example to teach you the formula and the sequence of computation. In your actual PPMP, you must substitute the current quarter's real prices from the current CMPD, never these teaching figures. Next slide. Part 10. From unit price to total ABC, how to compute the total ABC from market scoping data. Step 1. Compute the DUPA unit price for each pay item, using current CMPD prices. Step 2. Multiply the unit price by the quantity from your quantity estimate. Step 3. Sum all pay item costs, this gives you the total project direct cost. Step 4. Apply OCM plus profit plus VAT, this gives you the total project cost, which is your ABC. For example, if the PCCP unit price is 1,210 pesos and 74 centavos per square meter, multiplied by 350 square meters. That equals 423,759 pesos for the PCCP component only. You then add subbase, earthwork, culvert, riprap, mobilization, and OSH to arrive at the total ABC. Critical note on cement. Cement quantity in the DUPA equals 364 kilograms per cubic meter, divided by 40 kilograms per bag, equals 9.10 bags per cubic meter of concrete. For 0.20 meter thick PCCP, that is 9.10 times 0.20, equals 1.82 bags per square meter. This is the mandatory minimum per DPWH Blue Book Item 311, Section 311.2.11. A DUPA showing fewer bags than this is technically deficient. Note on illustrative prices. The prices used in the DUPA example are illustrative only. Actual prices change every quarter. Always use the current CMPD from the DPWH District Engineering Office and the current DPWH standard labor rates. A DUPA using prices from a prior quarter without adjustment is a common market scoping deficiency. Emphasize the critical note on cement carefully, since this is one of the most frequently cited audit findings in DUPA preparation. If your DUPA shows fewer than 1.82 bags of cement per square meter for a 0.20 meter thick PCCP, that DUPA does not meet the mandatory minimum in the DPWH Blue Book, and it should be corrected before it is used to support the ABC. Next slide. Part 11. Documents to produce. What must be documented after conducting market scoping? Next slide. Part 11. Required and recommended market scoping documents. The price canvas sheet, or market price survey form, must contain the project name, the canvas date, the name and address of each supplier, the material description, the unit, the quantity inquired, the unit price quoted by each supplier, the delivery terms, the CMPD price for the same item, the selected price for the ABC, the signature of the canvassing officer, and it must be noted by the department head. This is required. It is the primary market scoping document, it supports the ABC in the PPMP, and it must be available for Commission on Audit Review. The CMPD data copy, current quarter, must be a copy of the latest CMPD from the DPWH District Engineering Office. showing the CMPD date, quarter, and district, in this case the relevant district. This is required for infrastructure projects, to confirm that current DPWH-approved prices were used. The preliminary program of works must contain the list of pay items, preliminary quantities, preliminary unit prices from the DUPA, and the total estimated project cost, which becomes the preliminary ABC, signed by the municipal engineer. This is required for infrastructure as the engineering basis for the ABC in the PPMP. The quantity estimate worksheet must show the mathematical derivation of each quantity, length times width times thickness, or count times unit weight, signed by the engineer. This is required for infrastructure and supports the Bill of Quantities, per Commission on Audit Circular 2012-001, Annex C. And the Market Scoping Report, a narrative document, should cover the market conditions assessment, price trend analysis, supply risk factors, recommended mode, recommended schedule, recommended specifications, and identified risks. This is recommended but not legally required, though it provides a strong documentation basis if the ABC is later challenged. Importance. Think of these 5 documents as a single connected story. The price canvas sheet and CMPD copy prove where the prices came from, the preliminary program of works and quantity estimate prove how those prices were turned into a total cost. And the market scoping report, while not mandatory, ties the whole narrative together for anyone reviewing the file later. Next slide. Part 11. Price canvas sheet, required fields. Field 1, project name and location, write the full project name and the barangay and municipality location. Field 2, date of canvas, write the specific date or dates, since prices are time sensitive, and identify the corresponding CMPD quarter. Field 3, supplier 1 name and address, the name of the first store or supplier visited, complete address, and contact number. Field 4, supplier 2 name and address, the same details for the second supplier. Field 5, supplier 3 name and address, the same details for the third supplier. Field 6, material description per line, write the specific material, for example, quote, Portland cement, type 1, ASTMC 150, 40 kg bag, end quote. Field 7, quantity inquired, the approximate quantity needed, since this affects whether a bulk or retail price was quoted. Field 8, unit price from supplier 1, 2, and 3, the price per unit, per bag, per cubic meter, or per kilogram, from each supplier, plus delivery terms. Field 9, CMPD price, current quarter, the CMPD price for the same item and district, noting if the field price is higher or lower. Field 10, selected price for DUPA, the price chosen for the ABC computation, noting whether it is the CMPD or the field price, with justification if different. Field 11, hauling cost, if applicable, the additional transport cost from the supplier's warehouse to the project site. And Field 12, signatures, the canvassing officer's signature, the date signed, and the department head's notation. For example, a price canvas sheet missing Field 12, the signatures, is technically incomplete even if every price on it is accurate and correct. An unsigned canvas sheet has no evidentiary value during a Commission on Audit review, because there is no accountable officer attached to the figures. Next slide. Part 12. Ethics and limits. What market scoping must not do, prohibited activities and ethical rules. Next slide. Part 12. Prohibited activities in market scoping. Consulting only one supplier, a sole source market scoping, creates a monopoly advantage, since single source consultation allows that supplier to shape the ABC and specifications to favor themselves. Writing specifications around one supplier amounts to non-competitive procurement, and is a potential violation of Republic Act 3019, Section 3, Letter E, giving undue advantage. Allowing a prospective bidder to write or significantly influence the technical specifications means the bidder writes specifications only they can meet, effectively awarding the contract before bidding even starts. This is bid rigging, a violation of the competitive principles of Republic Act 12009, with potential criminal liability under Republic Act 3019. Sharing the ABC with prospective bidders before bid opening violates Section 17.6 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations of Republic Act 12009, which states that the approved detailed engineering designs, plans, and estimates shall not be divulged to any prospective bidder or to the public prior to the opening of bids. This causes bid leakage, eliminates the competitive incentive, and creates criminal liability under both Republic Act 12,009 and Republic Act 3019. Using market scoping to pre-select a supplier or contractor is prohibited. Because market scoping is for information only, the decision on who wins must follow the formal procurement process. This is bid rigging, a violation of the Anti-Graft Law, Republic Act 3019, with both criminal and administrative liability. And fabricating price canvas sheets to justify a predetermined ABC, by creating fictitious quotations from suppliers who were never actually contacted, constitutes falsification of public documents under Article 171 of the Revised Penal Code, with administrative liability as well. Emphasize the legal seriousness of this slide. These are not simply best practice violations, several of them, such as sharing the ABC before bid opening, or fabricating canvas sheets, carry potential criminal liability under Republic Act 3019 or the Revised Penal Code. Treat every item on this list as an absolute prohibition, never a matter of convenience. Next slide. Part 12. Proper ethics in market scoping. First, consult multiple suppliers or contractors, at least 3 per category, from different sources. A single source canvas creates conflicts of interest and reduces the reliability of the price data. Second, keep market scoping purely for information, make no promises or commitments to any supplier. Informal consultations do not create obligations, and suppliers understand this is a government planning activity. Third, keep market scoping results, especially the ABC, confidential from prospective bidders, per Section 17.6 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, since the detailed estimates must not be divulged before bid opening. Fourth, document everything, with signed price canvas sheets showing actual dates and actual supplier information. Documentation is your protection. Signed and dated records prove that market scoping was properly conducted. Fifth, conduct market scoping with an authorized government officer, never delegated to a supplier, since market scoping is an official government function that must be done by government personnel. And sixth, if a conflict of interest arises, for example a relative owns a consulted supplier, recuse yourself. Have another officer conduct the canvass for that specific item and document the recusal. For example, if your municipality's usual market scoping habit is to ask only the single supplier closest to the municipal hall, switching to at least 3 suppliers from genuinely different sources, as required by Rule 1 on this slide, is often the single most effective improvement an office can make. Next slide. Part 13. Common errors and audit findings. Frequently found market scoping deficiencies and their consequences. Next slide. Part 13. Audit findings on market scoping, Set 1, Findings 1 to 4. Finding 1, no market scoping documentation on file. The PPMP shows an ABC of 994,740 pesos and 50 centavos for APCCP Access Road, but no price canvas sheet, CMPD copy, or preliminary program of works can be produced. The ABC cannot be verified. Basis, Section 10.1 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations of Republic Act 12009, and Section 4, Paragraph 6 of Presidential Decree 1445, which requires that claims must be supported by complete documentation. Finding 2, ABC based on an outdated CMPD, not the current quarter. The DUPA for a project prepared in the third quarter of 2024 uses cement prices from the CMPD for the fourth quarter of 2023, 3 quarters outdated. Cement prices increased by 35 pesos per bag in that period, resulting in an understated ABC. Basis, DPWH Department Order 30, Series 2025, and Department Order 210, Series 2025. Finding 3, only one supplier contacted, a sole source canvas. The price canvas sheet shows only one hardware store's prices. A single source price cannot confirm that the market rate was used, or that the ABC was not inflated. Basis, Sections 10.1 and 10.3 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, since market research implies multiple independent sources. And finding 4, field prices used without comparison to the CMPD. The price canvas sheet shows supplier quoted prices 25 to 30% higher than the current CMPD for the same period, without explanation. The CMPD was not consulted, suggesting the ABC may have been inflated. Basis: DPWH Department Order 30, Series 2025, since the CMPD is the official reference. Importance: look closely at finding 1 in particular, an ABC that cannot be traced to any supporting document. This is the most fundamental of all market scoping findings, because it means the entire cost estimate has no evidence behind it at all, regardless of whether the number itself happens to be accurate. Next slide. Part 13. Audit Findings on Market Scoping, Set 2, Findings 5 to 8. Finding 5, Market Scoping conducted by a supplier, a conflict of interest. A private hardware store owner prepared the price estimates and preliminary program of works used as the ABC basis. The same hardware store subsequently submitted a bid and won. Market scoping was compromised by conflict of interest. Basis: Section 10.1 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, and Section 3, Letter E of Republic Act 3019. Finding 6, ABC not adjusted for hauling cost to a remote site. The ABC used CMPD prices, ex-quarry, without adding hauling cost from the supplier to a remote barangay site, approximately 25 kilometers away. An additional transport cost of 120 pesos per cubic meter for aggregates resulted in an understated ABC of 45,000 pesos for the subbase component. Basis: DPWH Department Order 30, Series 2025, Annex C, since CMPD prices may include additional hauling cost. Finding 7, Specifications written for unavailable materials, leading to failed bidding. Specifications required, quote, Class 3 RCP culverts per AASHTOM 170, end quote, which was not commercially available from any regional supplier. 2 bidding failures resulted. Market scoping would have identified the unavailability before the first bidding. Basis: Section 10.4.2 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, since specifications should be based on available market standards. And finding 8, market scoping done once, not updated before bidding 2 quarters later. Market scoping was conducted in July 2024, using the 3rd quarter CMPD. The invitation to bid was posted in January 2025, using 1st quarter 2025 prices. Cement increased 45 pesos per bag, or 15%, and steel increased 8 pesos per kilogram, or 10%, in the interim. All bids exceeded the stale ABC. Basis: Section 10.1 of the Implementing Rules and Regulations, since market scoping must produce current, relevant price data. For example, finding 7 on this slide, specifications written for materials that no regional supplier actually carries, shows how a market scoping failure at the planning stage can directly cause 2 separate failed biddings months later. A few hours of checking supplier availability during market scoping could have prevented both failures entirely. Next slide. Part 14. Summary Checklist. The market scoping quality checklist to use before finalizing the PPMP. Next slide. Part 14. Market scoping checklist, items 1 to 10. Item 1, site inspection conducted, project location and approximate scope identified. Item 2, preliminary list of pay items prepared, for infrastructure, or item list with specifications, for goods. Item 3, current CMPD obtained from the DPWH District Engineering Office, confirmed which quarter and which district. Item 4, current DPWH standard labor rates schedule obtained. Item 5, current equipment rental rates verified, using the ACEL Guidebook or ADPWH District Engineering Office reference. Item 6, field price canvass conducted, at least 3 suppliers per major material item. Item 7, price canvass sheet completed, supplier names, dates, prices, and delivery terms all recorded. Item 8, field canvass prices compared against CMPD prices, discrepancies explained. Item 9, hauling cost from supplier to project site estimated and added where applicable. And Item 10, preliminary DUPA computed for major pay items using current prices. Emphasize how this checklist should be used. Do not wait until the PPMP is already being finalized to check these items. Use this checklist actively while the field canvass and site inspection are still being conducted, so that missing items, such as an unverified equipment rental rate, can still be corrected before the deadline. Next slide. Part 14. Market Scoping Checklist, Items 11 to 20. Item 11, Preliminary Quantity Estimate prepared with mathematical derivations, such as length times width times thickness. Item 12, Preliminary ABC computed, the sum of all pay item costs including OCM, profit, and VAT. Item 13, Market Conditions assessed, how many contractors or suppliers are available, and whether prices are stable or rising. Item 14, Technical specifications written in generic or functional terms, not brand-specific. Item 15, Appropriate procurement mode determined based on the resulting ABC. Item 16, Procurement schedule estimated, including delivery lead times and typhoon season. Item 17, All market scoping documents signed by the conducting officer and noted by the supervisor. Item 18, Market scoping results used as the basis for the PPMP, specifically the ABC, mode, and schedule columns. Item 19, the ABC, mode, and specifications in the PPMP are consistent with the market scoping findings. And Item 20, Market scoping documents are filed and available for Commission on Audit review. For example, Item 14 on this checklist, generic rather than brand-specific specifications, connects directly back to the wrong specification problems shown earlier in Part 9. A specification that fails Item 14 will very likely also fail Item 19, consistency between the PPMP and the market scoping findings. Next slide. Market scoping, why it matters, a final reminder. It protects the government from overpaying through an inflated ABC, or from failed biddings caused by an understated ABC. It protects the engineer from Commission on Audit findings on unsupported cost estimates. It protects the contractor from bidding on a project with an unrealistic ABC that would force corner cutting. And it protects the community from receiving substandard infrastructure built to an impossible budget. A properly conducted, honestly documented market scoping is the strongest defense against almost every procurement-related audit finding on the ABC. This concludes the guide. One final point of emphasis to close this guide. Every protection listed on this slide, for government, for the engineer, for the contractor, and for the community, depends on the same single behavior, doing genuine, honest, well-documented market scoping every single time, not just when convenient or when an audit is expected. Next slide.